just A for action is the verb. In case you get that, I think that's, it gets repeated, it's one of the more popular ones.
Wait, can you like use it
Yeah,
again?
it's sample.
Yes. We're so used to all of the imagery that we see that the special effects in Hollywood don't affect me anymore.
Okay.
Okay.
But again, I have no idea what pair of words they're going to give you. Just know that that's one of the things that they will throw at you. And with any luck on test day, we'll know the pair of words that we mix up. I'm considering putting together a list, but it's so randomized, and there's only one, or maybe two per entire test. So it's like, oh, you know, the return on investment of your time memorizing these. Hey, it will help you with the rest of your English and life, and that's good. But on this test, I'm not sure how great a return on investment that would give you. Next.
Oh, actually, 22.
Vocab, triumph. Next question.
Wait.
It is what it is. Let's move on, right? We knew it or we didn't. 24. So I am 100,000% confident that not a single one of you picked A. Am I right? Why am I being so dramatic? Because you saw the word being, and you went, nah, that's not it.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Right. Right? Yes. Okay, good. So we know being, no, that's not gonna do it.
So being is in any like variation, okay?
I've seen it used correctly where all four options required you to use being, in which case you go, all right, fine. And I think in the last 6 years, I've seen the word being used correctly once out of all the hundreds of example problems in which they put it.
Okay.
So it's like 1 in 1,000.
What makes it wrong?
So what makes being wrong is not so much making it wrong as being is always passive.
Okay.
And active voice is to be preferred. So there's almost always a better way to put it
Okay.
than being. All right? So we don't pick A. Then let's talk about analyzing the answer you did choose. So who chose what for 24 that was not correct? Sorry?
D.
D. An obscure method of photography, an idea that's obviously very attractive. This is going to be known as a misplaced modifier. This phrase makes it sound like obviously it's very attractive to have an obscure method of photography, and I'm not making the connection. Why is an obscure method of photography supposed to be obviously attractive to me? Right? I think that's lacking explanation. What it is that's attractive is that it's made available at little expense. That, I can understand that. If it's cheap, that's attractive.
Oh, that makes sense. Okay.
Now the correct answer, let's take a look at how that plays out, and this is one of the special uses of the colon. I'm going to say to you, the idea is obviously very attractive. Let me explain. And that's the job of the colon. I'm going to announce one of them. I'm going to now announce, and I'm announcing an explanation of what I mean by it's very attractive. Right?
Would that question be
Wait,
ranked, like,
That's not right, is it?
I thought.
What?
No,
Yeah,
it's
it's
right.
10.
I'm having a heart attack. I'm like, what? What time is it?
10.
Well, I think they're 11.
I don't know. I'm like, what? There's no way I went to. We didn't get a break.
The clock's internet.
Okay.
Yeah,
They turn back tomorrow.
No, it is.
No, it is.
Yeah, it's
No,
10.
the clocks turn back tomorrow.
Oh, and they're ahead of the game here?
Yeah, they must have reset them.
Before we go away for the
Yeah, they're
weekend?
probably
Oh,
not.
okay.
Yeah.
So they're gonna have to do it like Monday.
Yeah, okay. I'm about to have a breakdown, like, wait.
Yeah.
And you didn't leave yet. And I'm like, you didn't want, you're late. All right.
Would that question be ranked as harder?
Whew. I think so, yeah, because knowing how to use the colon is something that pretty, most students don't know.
Because when you said that the expense or the attractiveness because it's cheaper, I would have gone C.
Yeah, I
didn't
And the secure method of photography, okay, so let's talk about C very quickly, because I think this is very important.
I have no clue. Daylight savings, I don't know.
So what
Siri-
happens?
Siri takes care of me, she's gonna turn my
Yeah,
clock
we
back
set
on.
it forward.
Why are daily savings?
So, a question was brought up, let's take a look at C. And I think this is very, very important because this is a very common trap answer. If you, would you go ahead and read C for me?
Yeah. An obscure method of photography may be made available to many at little expense.
Well, that's a nice idea, I'm glad you told me. I interrupted you on purpose, because now what's gonna happen? Then I've got one more thing to say. That's not good writing. So to make a statement and then to go comma and, grammatically, punctuationally, it's okay. It's not like bad syntax. It's just, you said something, I thought you were done, and I got one more thing to tack on. They do that a lot, where they'll just tack one more thing on, and that's not the best writing. Now, if all of the others had errors in them, we'd be forced to pick it, wouldn't we?
Yeah.
But it's usually a trap answer. And I'm just tacking this on. Next.
28.
A 3C's question. So, what's going on in front? It says, time that could be used creating art is spent devising clever perks to draw attention of potential contributors. Now, in its greater context about artists who are trying to create art, and the fact that time that could be used creating art is spent doing, devising clever perks. Let's start, is this a positive or a negative?
Negative.
It's a negative, because artists should be creating art. Instead, their time is taken away having to do this stuff. So, in front, I've got a negative. What's happening afterwards? Audiences may contain free riders that don't make contributions. Is that a positive or a negative? So I'm gonna go and cross out all of my contrast words. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Let's go cross out, however and conversely. Now, in addition is just correlative, and thus shows causality. So, does the fact that they spend time creating clever perks, does that cause free riders to come and not make contributions? No, so it's gotta be in addition. But I always start with my contrast question. Does it contrast? And that positive negative strategy has many, many, many applications. In your transitions, positive negative. In the reading section, when you're asking about what the author would say, well, is the author positive or negative towards it? Positive negative has a lot of applications in both reading and writing. Next. What's next?
35.
35 looks like
Oh,
puncture.
wait,
34?
34. Yeah.
34 and 35.
36.
And 36. Okay. So starting with 34, for the sake of logic, where should sentence 3 be placed? So let's go do our flow in, flow out. Newspapers, the traditional nurturing ground for investigative journalism, have been hit especially hard. Wait, especially hard compared to what? You must have told me that some sort of media was hit hard, and newspapers, among all of those media, have been hit especially hard. That contrast, I think, is significant. By the widespread availability of free news online. So now, for my flow out, I say, well, why'd you tell me that? Can you explain how the newspapers were affected? What do you mean they were hit especially hard? In what way? Okay? So, what option had you chosen? And let's talk about why that doesn't work.
A.
Where it is now. Facing lower print circulation and diminished advertising revenue, many major newspapers, we're already talking about major newspapers. I can't contrast newspapers with newspapers. They've been hit especially hard. This, to me, sounds like the explanation that should flow out of how they were affected, right? So,
Oh, cause it's like the third one's introducing newspapers. Like,
look at, so let's go look for a different optional location. Furthermore, for my flow out, if I left it where it is right now, to survive, investigative journalism must continue to adapt to the digital age, doesn't explain to me what do you mean they were hit especially hard, right? So you have no business telling me that newspapers were hit especially hard and then leaving me with nothing explanation. I thought we were talking about how newspapers were hit especially hard. Why are you talking about investigative journalism? Explain to me what you mean by that. And that's exactly what's happening. And look at sentence 1. It says print journalism in general. And then then we can follow up with newspapers hit especially hard, what? Out of all of print journalism. And then the explanation flows out. 35, we're looking at punctuation. I look for other punctuation in the sentence. I see a comma after cash strap. Any other punctuation? No. No, and that comma is not going to impact this, is it? Because it's just giving me a series of adjectives: cash-strapped, understaffed, publication. So that doesn't affect the punctuation I want here. So my next step is, leading up to the proposed punctuation, do we have a complete thought? It is not difficult to understand why a cash-strapped, understaffed publication might feel pressure to cut teams of investigative reporters. Complete thought. Next, do I have a complete thought afterwards? And thankfully, they're not playing with changing the words after the punctuation. It is what it is. Many times they'll change the punctuation and change the words, and that makes it trickier. But here, their work is expensive and time-consuming. Also a complete thought. So what can I not put between them? Comma, because that would be the comma splice, right? So, what did you pick for an answer?
I think the commas
So, D, semicolon, if you're focusing on the punctuation, maybe you missed the fact that it says reporter singular possessive. Because the semicolon could work, except reporter apostrophe S disqualifies.
Why does that disqualify it?
Because it's not, we're not talking about a singular reporter, and that reporter doesn't possess anything. There's no point in putting possessive. It's teams of investigative reporters. It's not teams of investigative reporter possessing something. Now, the point is, here's why they put that error in there. Because otherwise, both colon and semicolon could work, it seems reasonable. So I'm gonna put an error in the semicolon one, so you must take the colon. Why? Because, let me explain what I mean, right? It says, it's not difficult to understand why they might feel pressure to cut teams of investigative reporters. I better explain that, because it's expensive, right? So, there again is the use of the colon to announce an explanation of what I just said. And it seems like the semicolon could work too, but they intentionally worked an error in there so that you wouldn't be having English teachers complain, hey, the semicolon could have worked too. No, we put an error in. And 36 is just an idiom. We do things in the public interest. Why not for the public interest? Because an English dude once said we do it in the public interest, and that's how we say it now. So it's an idiom. So it was completed in the public interest, it was done in the public interest, it was, in this case, undertaken in the public interest. But what matters is, in the public interest. And it is what it is. Next. Did someone say 37?
Yeah, but I kinda get that.
You kinda get it? There should be an absolute clear get it. Redundancy.
Okay.
Because
Okay, I have a question.
every option is a repeat of something that's already said in the text. So we just delete it. Question?
What's the difference between a colon and a semicolon?
So they're both called hard stops, right? So let's just clarify that again. We've got, whoop, how about I go back here? So we got the colon, or semicolon. I must have a complete thought. So give me a statement, let's make a statement, I walked to the store. I walked to the store. There's a complete thought. Now let's have well, that's ugly, but that's okay. The second part, I must have another complete thought that's related to this.
I got chicken.
I was thinking I got soaked by the rain. Or I got chicken, I can tell you what I purchased. It's related to me going to the store somehow, right? So, semicolon is separating two complete thoughts. This is not an explanation or a definition of me going to the store, is it? It's just more information that's related to me going to the store.
Would it be like a different thing if you added a comma instead of a semicolon and in front of the I? Like would that?
You could use semicolon or you could use comma and.
So like those two are interchangeable?
Yes, either we put comma and or we replace them both with a semicolon. You could have put a period as well. You could use a semicolon, you could have used a period.
Will comma and always be like a replacement for a semicolon?
I don't know, I wouldn't say always a replacement for.
Like,
I mean,
they mean the same thing.
well, the idea is how do we join two independent clauses? How do we join two independent clauses? Well, we separate them completely with a period. We separate them completely with a semicolon. We separate them completely with comma conjunction. Or in a special case, we may separate them completely with a colon if it meets our criteria that I'll discuss in a moment. So hard stop, hard stop, hard stop needs a complete thought in front of it, right? So, did I answer your questions up to this point, Linda? So let me say this. I meandered to the store. I would have said I meandered my way to the store, but I'm running out of space, but that's fine. Now, that's a complete thought, isn't it? Independent clause. Hard stop. What comes afterwards, if I want to use a colon, if I want to, it depends on what I would put afterwards as to whether I would use semicolon or colon. If I decided maybe I meandered, if I decide my audience might not know meandered, I might now go and explain what I meant by that, or define it. That's the use of the colon. I stopped here and there to smell the flowers. So that's giving you a better understanding of what I did by meandering, meaning I was not going to the store. I was meandering, I was kind of stopping here and there and being distracted and not in any hurry. So you might think, well, that's related to going to the store, isn't it? Yes. So couldn't I use a semicolon? No, because it really is a explanation of what I meant by meandering, and I must use the colon. I've seen that done only once, where they offered a colon and they offered a semicolon with the same, it looks like both of them could work, and everyone went for the semicolon because they don't know that you can do that with a colon. But if it's a definition or an explanation, you must use colon over semicolon. I don't think that's a big worry, but I've seen it maybe once. Other than that, the one thing everybody I think and hope already knows is that after a colon, it could announce a list. That's the one that most students already come in knowing. So that's essentially the difference between semicolon and colon. Yep.
And it doesn't have to be something called off.
And this doesn't have to be, it could be a phrase. Technically, I don't think it's supposed to be a dependent clause, but that's, for this test, not an issue. Next.
39.
Vocab, the answer is D. Next question.
40.
We knew it or we didn't, right, guys? 40? Idiom, the answer is need not. Next question.
42.
Okay, 42. So we already know that the job of the colon is to introduce a list, right? What's the job of for example or such as? Introduce a list. So using such as and colon would be considered redundant. So we've got to cross out anything that uses both colon and such as, right? So let's go cross out B and C. Cross out B and C. Now, what is the difference?
The comma after.
Do we need a comma after enterprises or not? And we have to go look for, is there any other punctuation anywhere else in our sentence? No. Now, how many of you ended up choosing D? Because I think it sounds reasonable to pause there, only if there's another comma.
After project.
Yes. But there is none, so I can read with no pause and it works. The no pause option works here. If there was another comma after project, then no, it wouldn't work. And I would have to pick B. So I think the takeaway is you gotta be looking, is there any other punctuation? And in this case, the lack of any other punctuation means I can't pick D. All right. 3-minute break? 4-minute break? 4 minutes, go ahead.